Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. And oh boy, it's been only a couple of days, but things are already happening in Kursk and things are not looking good for Russians. The bad situation that we were talking about in the last video, with significant part of the Russian forces getting cut off in part of the Kursk region, is actually happening and is already on the way, as we're talking about. So what's happening is that to the west from the area of the main Ukrainian armed forces incursion, there is this area right over here. And this area right over here contains about 2,700 Russian troops, at least reported. These Russian troops is a mix of some regular forces and conscript forces, and they are defending the border in those trenches that Ukrainians have penetrated when they entered through the main breaching point. The problem of this area is that this area is cut off from the mainland Russia by a relatively large river. This river in this area is anywhere from 30 to 80 meters wide. So it's a wide river. You cannot just walk across it. And that river goes right over here, if you will see that. Now, in this map you cannot see, but in reality Ukrainians have already fully in control basically on this area right over here. So the pocket on the western side is closed because that's where Ukraine is, and then the pocket on the eastern side is also closed because that's where the main Ukrainian incursion force is. So now the only way for the Russians that are stuck in this area is upwards. The issue with that was that there was only 3 bridges in the area that would be good enough for the Russian forces to withdraw. And the last time we talked about the situation, there was this main bridge that was over here. It was the most toughest and the most solid bridge. It was already taken out by the Ukrainian aviation. Shortly after the video premiered, there was actually news and videos coming out of Ukrainians taking out the second bridge in the area. And the only thing that was left was the small bridge in the area of Karish, which was located over here. And the reports are that from today that this bridge has been taken out as well. I must right away tell you that the reports so far are only in text. We haven't seen images that are confirming the destruction of this bridge. There is this picture that is going around making circles on the internet and claimed to be the destruction of that third bridge, but this is not the third bridge. This is actually just another angle for the first bridge that was located right over here. So we do not have so far visual confirmation of destruction with this bridge. But what does this leave us? Firstly, let's get the notion out of what is definitely not going to happen. Some people assume, since there is like a lot of Russian in all of these weird settlements in the trenches and so on, then at some point Ukrainians, now that they cut off, they're just going to kind of waltz through and circle all of these 2,700 Russian forces and then capture everyone or kill whatever is not captured. That is not what's going to happen. Because as much as this river is a problem, Russians are trying to set up pontoon crossings, and these pontoon crossings are very easy to destroy, and they are getting destroyed, but it's going to take certain times for the crossing to be operational. What it will not allow escape of these forces from the southern side en masse. So it will not allow for a massive orderly withdrawal from the southern side of Russia. So most likely what we will see, a lot of these forces will be withdrawn, but a lot of equipment will be left. Most notably, most likely, all of the heavy and slow moving equipment. And all in all, in the best case scenario, we will see that Russians will withdraw, and then Ukrainians will be able to secure this area altogether, essentially almost doubling their area that they're currently controlling. A little bit worst case scenario, which might also happen, is that Russia will try crossing, and to be honest, this can go 50-50. If Russia starts crossing from the north to south to try to reinforce the area and make it harder for Ukrainians to get into the area, then the situation might be really bad for Ukrainians. Well, not bad, but it just can be a really big slog for Ukrainians. It's going to require a lot of effort on their side, and I'm going to believe that they will at the end capture it, but it's just going to take a lot more time and it's going to take a lot more resources. On the other hand, because the area is being commanded by General Lapin, it's the same guy that, if you remember, some 2 years ago, there was a disastrous crossings of Russians of the river. It was the same guy that was in charge of that crossing. Now, he's supposedly not in charge right now in Kursk, but still relevant that he's still operating very, very close to this area. But Russians can get caught on these crossings and then destroyed. So it can be really bad, and everything looks that it's going to be bad. But I do believe that most likely scenario that we're going to see is that Russians are going to start slowly withdrawing to some kind of a central places where they will try to set up these quick crossings, and essentially Ukrainians will slowly squeeze with relatively light-ish fighting. But we also talked last time about the Ukrainian Plan. And I think Ukrainian Plan, the second part of that Ukrainian Plan has now also painted itself. And I think it also talks a lot about what kind of a general Syrskyi is when he's planning operation. One notable aspect that Syrskyi does, it seems that he plans really, really well on how to exploit the terrain and terrain features around the area. So the part that we know that Ukrainians are doing, I'm going to try to draw because I cannot see everything here. So the parts that we definitely know is what I said to you last time, is that there is this river, and that river kind of goes up, and then if Ukrainians then recapture this territory, then they're going to have a really nice white barrier to the north that will protect them from the Russians and the Russian incursions, and they will be able to free up more units to operate in the area in the center and in the eastern part of this incursion. But on the eastern side of this incursion, I'm going to try to draw this part right now here. That's the river that goes all the way over here. That's the river that we're talking about. So if Ukraine kind of cuts off here, gets this, then they have basically their western flank secured. On the eastern side, there is this river that goes over here. It's not as big, but it's still a notable river. And that river actually kind of engages another river, and they form some sort of like a T-shaped crossing, where there's also another river goes here. So what Ukrainians seemingly trying to do is they're trying to use the natural barrier to protect their flanks, so they can establish some kind of a notable, like very, very clear front line that is protected on the side by the natural barriers. And this is now not a secret that has been appearing on the Russian media sources, and it's very good. I think it's a very good planning operation. And what Ukrainians now are trying to do in this area, they are actually advancing right along that river, trying to get to that crossing, that T-shaped crossing. But continuing looking at what the Ukrainian armed forces are doing in Kursk, it's again warms my heart that we're seeing a lot of these videos where Ukrainian armed forces are helping out civilians. It just shows great contrast. Here they're bringing some food for the locals, and it's very nice. It's just very nice to hear, to see and hear that Ukrainian armed forces trying to be kind and really, really welcoming. And I'm happy to see that at least for now, the Russian civilians are not telling stories that you're all Nazis and we're going to resist you. No, they are cooperating and they're accepting the help. And I think the best way to kind of summarize the situation that Russia finds themselves in was by this Telegram channel, the All Quiet on the ZZ Western Front. It's obviously he's writing in Russian, but it's a great channel. He is, if you're reading Russians, he's getting all of the notable quotes from the Russian propaganda channels, and it's a very nice way to follow the Russian propagandists, unless you are really looking to get into the depths of the Russian propaganda. So if you want, I'll leave a link to the channels below. So, and he states like this: I would like to record for myself for the memory. Full-scale military actions are underway on the territory of the Russian Federations, with artillery, tanks, planes, many killed on both sides, captured settlements, destroyed bridges. Now a fairly large group of troops may find themselves in a very unpleasant situation and under threat of losing about 700 square kilometers of territory, which is that pocket that we just discussed. The Ministry of Emergency Situations reported that more than 121,000 people left the border districts of the Kursk region. There are no prospects for quickly stopping the advancing army. Military channels write about this, and they write about the successes that the Russians are having. Cannot be expected before the mid-October, so the Russians would not be able to counterattack. Now the military actions in the border area are entering the phase of a competition of potentials when each side seeks to inflict the greatest damage to equipment, personnel, and resources of the opposite side. That's the reality. That's the reality, he quotes one of the Russian propagandists. And then he says, at the same time, Putin is in Azerbaijan. There have been no more statements from him since the first days of the fighting. He promised refugees 10,000 rubles in aid, but as they are now finding out, it's only to those refugees that officially were evacuated by the Russian government and not the ones that left on their own free will. Peskov, the spokesperson of Putin, is on vacation. Belousov, the defense minister, is probably praying somewhere, possibly with his cat. Medvedev, the main alcoholic of the Russian Federation, has not written anything in his telegram for 10 days. Shoigu, Gerasimov, Mishustin, all the other top officials of the states are obviously busy with more important matters, and the only public speaker is the commander of the Akhmat battalion, Aptia Aludinov. He is doing poorly and is getting worse, and it's getting worse every day. Did he miss anything? Yeah, so that's the situation Russia finds themselves in at the outset of the third year of war, at the outset of a year where they threw everything to the wall, where they pulled every reserve that they had in their storages from the Soviet Union, where they invested incredibly in a manufacturing capacity, where they changed the defense minister to be this now optimizing guy that every Western media outlet was salivating and just couldn't looking down his throat, looking to say like, now Russia is gonna come back. And I was telling you, no. Russia is a banana republic. Russia is a pretend state where they just trying to present a picture of how strong, how mighty, how unstoppable they are. Whereas in reality, they're just full of paper. And more importantly, the strikes against the Russian territory are not stopping. And usually I don't report because Ukrainians are doing them on a regular basis. But this one is kind of good, because this strike happened on the Sunday morning, very early morning. It was the Rostov area of the Russia, and the strike was against the Proletarsk fuel storage facility. And that facility stored a lot of fuel. Now, this is the picture of the facility. The facility has, each of these reservoirs holds about 5,000 tons of diesel. So the drone struck this facility early in Sunday. The fire teams still haven't been able to reach this facility and start extinguishing it because of the fire. Right now, more than half of this facility is already engulfed in flames, and it seems that the whole thing is gonna burn down to crisp. It's very, very, very substantial blow to the Russian diesel capacity. That's what I have for you today. More good news coming soon. And if you have an option and you haven't still participated, then please know that up until the end of August, we're going to try to do as much as we can for the Ukrainian armed forces. And we're going to do this in this big donation fundraiser for the brigades that are operating in the Kursk area. So join up, support Ukraine. I love you. Slava Ukraini. I see you next time.